a day podcast. And I think that is eminently reasonable because we are now beginning football season. And you're going to want to follow the Packers and know everything that's going on every day. Andy Herman joins us now, Pack a Day podcast. If you can't give him every day, and Andy, I think that's a very minimal ask, right?
Yeah.
On our behalf, minimal, okay? If you can't give him every day, we give him to you on Tuesdays, and we say, good morning. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. I don't understand 365 days. That's not that hard. Just once a day. It's easy.
Exactly. So coming off a family night, I, as a host, always try to understand and stay on top of the larger narratives about a team and what are the big topics of what's happening. You're more in the weeds every day, every little thing you're following. The narrative, though, coming off a family night is this team right now, at least, is in very clear air, blue skies, smooth sailing. Am I wrong in that assessment of where things are vibe-wise with this Packer team?
I want to say yes, just so you don't jinx it, Czabe. Yeah, I think everything's going great right now. The Jordan Love contract is done. I think that was the only small little white cloud that was sort of hovering above Packers practice when he was out. And then as soon as that got done, everything just sort of felt full steam ahead. It was kind of what you were expecting going into training camp. And then, obviously on day one, you had the news that Love wasn't going to practice. But as soon as that was done, I think we've had extremely competitive practices day in and day out. I think we've seen the offense sort of get back in the swing of things with Love at QB. The deep ball's looking good from Jordan. You're seeing him connect with Watson and Dobbs and all of these super talented wide receivers. Tucker Kraft is coming off of the PUP list today. Zach Tom sounds like he's going to do some team drills this week. Like I said, other than the potential for jinxing it, things are going pretty darn well right now.
Okay. And that's fine. There will be plenty of turbulence because the NFL is a chaotic endeavor, and there's one will do things that make you go, wow, I thought we had that covered. How come we couldn't run the ball or stop the run? So that said, as we move into the first preseason game, how much do you think the starters will play?
Yeah, this is a super interesting question because you have the dynamic now of these joint practices, and the joint practices have the ability to give you a lot of work with the starters. They can work as many of the ones as they want during those. You've got Jordan wearing a red jersey during that, so he doesn't have to take any unnecessary hits. You can control that, and you can also control the situations in an actual game. You're limited to the fact of what happens in the game, and you might not have all the things that you want to do. Or in these joint practices, you can work as much red zone as you want. You can work as much of the new kick return rule as you want. You can work anything that you want. So I think that those two potentially give you a lot of opportunities to have the ones work a ton. However, this is the 1 week where you don't have a joint practice. So do you give the ones a little bit more time? This is also the practice where if you do suffer some injuries, it gives you the longest runway between now and the Eagles game to actually allow you to maybe return from some of those injuries. So I'm extremely intrigued. I think, if Zach Tom, for instance, can't go in this game, that probably makes you a little bit more cautious of, all right, do we want to play Jordan Love in this game? And then on the flip side of things, we also know that Green Bay is not exactly known for their week one prowess. And I think a lot of times maybe not having that preseason experience does affect them from time to time in those week one games. So I'm as interested as you are, Czabe, to see what his plan is. We've, the media has asked Matt LaFleur, and he's been pretty coy about it and not kind of giving away his answers, just saying basically what you'll have to wait and see. My guess is we'll see maybe a little bit more of this number one defense with Jeff Hafley being new and maybe wanting to get a little bit more experience. I kind of lean towards it. A lot depends on if Zach Tom's actually available to play that 1 or 2 series for Jordan Love. And if he's not, I don't think Love plays.
When you talk about the new kickoff rules, obviously that's a big part of that. What changes will you see as far as the approach to that, especially for game 1 here on Saturday?
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see how they handle it. It does seem like they are going to use an actual kicker for the kickoff, which I think is expected. But we have seen, it sounds like the Chiefs might use Justin Reed, who's also a fantastic. It just happens to be a fantastic kicker. But
I love the Justin Reed story. It's
amazing. Great. It's amazing. I just love anytime, people game that stuff up, and Kansas City does it better than anyone. But it sounds like they're going to use a kicker. The hang time doesn't matter, which is what's interesting. As soon as the guy touches the ball, you can start running. What we've seen from Green Bay on the kick return side of things is they've used one man deep. We did not see that in the first Hall of Fame game. They used one man deep and then one guy up a little bit. It's usually been Keyshawn deep. It's been a little bit of A.J. Dillon, a little bit of Grant Dubose as the up guy in case they sort of kick it a little bit shorter. But I'm really intrigued to see just, how it goes. What yard line are they averaging to get to? I think the thing that is most interesting to me is if all of a sudden teams start getting this to the 31, 32, 35 every time, I think you're just going to see teams trying to kick it out of the end zone again to just put it at the 30. So I'm really intrigued to see how all of it works, to be honest.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see. I on the kickoff part of it, I just wonder at some point will a team crack the code where they actually have to change the rules?
Yep.
What do you think the odds of that are?
It sounds like there was already one change where like some team was already putting the ball on the tee sideways and making it spin in odd ways and do some stuff like that. And they already said you can't do that anymore. And I was really intrigued by the fact that when Rich Bisaccia was talking last week, that the league has basically told them they're going to continue to update this rule even through the course of the season, which is very.
Remember we talked about that, Czabe. I said that. I said there's going to be changes throughout the season. And I brought that up.
And you said, I thought you said they would wait until next season to change.
No, in season.
In season. And we both were like, how can you change something middle of the season? That's what I don't like about this, because there are going to be changes, and it's going to happen during the season. And I think that, Andy, I think it's so dumb. Like, these are the rules you have to play with.
Yeah.
How in the world can you change it halfway through a season?
I could understand more if they watched it in preseason and said, all right, clearly we've got an issue here. We need to change it before the season. But once the season starts, it feels like then you have to sort of be locked into those rules a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, I like the fact that with it being so new and so, just sort of being an experiment. Like if some team, to your point, Czabe, does just figure out a hack for this thing that is very clear and obvious of like, all right, that's not like the intention is they want kick returns. Like they want it to be an exciting play. And if they've realized that they've baked something into this, and it might just be something where, in the XFL or whatever it was, they brought it out to the 35 if you kicked it out of the end zone because they wanted returns. The NFL changed it to the 30. And like I said, if everyone's changed or, returning it to past the 30, every team's just going to try to kick it out of bounds and it's going to eliminate returns again. So they might have to change that back to the 35. But it is an interesting situation where the rules may change on the fly and teams might have to figure this thing out in a millisecond, depending on when they change it.
Yeah. The NFL is going to pull Josh a Darth Vader.
Yeah,
I've altered the deal.
Right. I don't alter it further.
I don't alter
in the city
further.
under my supervision.
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
Pray I don't alter the kickoff any further.
Yeah, but they shouldn't, because if it's a dumb idea, then they shouldn't have gone forward with it. You can't. It's not going to be fair to change something. Some team's going to complain.
Fair.
If
Fair.
If
You
it
think
was,
this league cares about fairness? Come on now.
And this is why.
About it.
This is why Mark Murphy voted against it, right? He was one of 3 people that voted against it because he just wanted it to be preseason experiment for the first year. And then depending on how that went, then they changed the rules next year. But obviously everyone else kind of wanted it full steam ahead.
All right, running back. How many touches do you think A.J. Dillon gets in this offense when it's all said and done? And how would you envision the roles between Jacobs, Lloyd, and Dillon sorting out?
Yeah, I think the first thing is for Jacobs. I would expect a very similar Aaron Jones-esque role for Jacobs. I know that the Packers have been very cautious over the years, both with McCarthy and LaFleur, with Aaron Jones and not giving him too many touches. I still think they're going to kind of want to keep a similar sort of situation for Josh Jacobs and not run him into the ground. I know that part of the allure of Jacobs is having that bigger bodied back that can carry a little bit more of that. But this is still modern NFL 2024, and you're usually not giving a running back 25, 30 touches anymore. So maybe slightly more than the Aaron Jones, situation over the last handful of years, or really for his career. But I kind of expect a similar role. And then I think the other, remaining snaps, a lot of it to me depends on Marshawn Lloyd, and more specifically, how quickly he can get up to speed on pass protection, because he is you can already tell he's a dynamic player with the ball in his hands. He is going to be more of a weapon and a playmaker than Dillon can be, but Dillon's going to give you the consistent stuff. He's going to give you consistent pass pro. He's going to know the checks. He catches the ball well out of the backfield. He doesn't fumble the ball, which is something that Lloyd struggled with in college, with multiple fumbles. I think he averaged 1 fumble every 40 touches, which is basically like every 2 games in the NFL if you're a full-time back. So there's certainly things that he's going to have to prove. But man, if you can get that guy on the field, the Dolphins are basically said going in like last year, and teams are copying it. We don't necessarily need that, glue guy. We just want 5 guys on the field that can be fast and can bring it to the house at any given moment. And the more guys that you can have on the field like that, usually now the better. And I think that's one of the reasons they went and got Josh Jacobs. They go and get Marshawn Lloyd. They want more dynamic playmakers on the field at all times. Lloyd gives you that. It's just going to be how quickly he can get up to speed. But right now, I think it's going to be Jacobs in that Jones role, and then a split between Dillon and Lloyd in that number 2 role where they both get opportunities. Lloyd maybe more in some obvious running situations where he can maybe bring that playmaking juice, and Dillon maybe some more in those third down situations where he's going to have to pick up the blitz a little bit more.
Andy, the first depth chart is out, and is there anything that jumps out? Oh yeah, Czabe, you're right. Is there anything that jumps out?
Not official. Don't really care. Depth chart.
Yeah, I know, but people do. Is there anything that jumps out at you?
The funny thing is, I'm with Czabe on this one. I care so little about the unofficial depth chart that I honestly didn't even look at it. I took a cursory glance at it, I should say. I didn't think at anything at first glance was super interesting. Javon Bullard, I know, is the starter. That's obviously been a rotation with Evan Williams along with Anthony Johnson Jr. That was slightly intriguing. The linebackers is exactly how we've seen it in camp so far. So there was not a ton that immediately caught my eye. Obviously, again, Jordan Morgan starting right guard, Sean Ryan and him have been sort of rotating at that spot. But honestly, especially from a starter standpoint, if you would have had me predict exactly what it would have looked like, I think not to sort of humble, I think I probably would have went 22 out of 22 on this one, just from what we've seen in camp so far.
All right. Anything else to add on the way out?
Oh yeah, one thing. So Brian, my son's going to be attending your basketball camp this week. So just give him heck. If you see somebody with the last name Herman, just give him absolute heck. Make him run as much as possible. A lot of push-ups. Do whatever you need to do. Get that kid in shape.
We'll make sure he sleeps well at night. Let's put it that way.
That's a challenge because that kid is an absolute monster of an athlete, and you cannot tire him out. So that's your challenge. Find a way to tire him out.
All right, we can do that. I
love it.
All right, don't forget, Kuhn and Billy, 9 to noon, live at Packers practice today. So they'll be there covering it. And away we go towards Cleveland on Saturday. Andy Herman, Pack-A-Day Podcast. Download it, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll talk to you next week, my friend.
You guys are the best. Thanks so much.
Also, don't